I still remember that morning. My only daughter, Emily, was preparing for her wedding. The house buzzed with excitement, flowers adorned every corner, and laughter echoed in the halls. But amid all the joy, my heart carried a weight that no one could see. I had spent decades building my life, protecting my wealth, and nurturing my family, and now I could feel the shadows creeping closer. Emily looked radiant in her wedding dress, the kind of beauty that made any father swell with pride. Yet there was something in her fiancé's smile that didn't sit right with me. Polite, charming, confident, too confident. It was a mask, I realized. Behind it lay ambition, greed, and a carefully plotted plan to claim what wasn't his. I had only one daughter. She was my life. I had dreamed of this day for her happiness, yet I feared it would also be the day her innocence collided with deception. The man she was marrying was not just after her heart. He was after our family's legacy, the fortune I had built, the property and wealth accumulated over decades. As the guests arrived, offering congratulations and gifts, I kept my eyes on him. Every handshake, every polite nod, every rehearsed laugh felt like a calculated move. He wanted approval, and he was getting it. Everyone believed he was worthy, but I knew the truth. Emily's mother had passed away years ago, leaving me to raise her alone. I had poured my soul into her upbringing, teaching her values, love, and integrity. And now, all that I held dear was at risk, hidden beneath polite smiles and expensive suits. The ceremony began. The music played, and Emily walked down the aisle with a mix of nervousness and joy. The crowd applauded, but I could only think about what lay beneath the surface. How could a man seem so perfect and yet harbor such dangerous intentions? I remembered the warnings, subtle signs I had noticed months before the wedding. The way he asked about property casually, the way he inquired about our wealth under the guise of conversation, the way he smiled just a little too confidently when discussing our family legacy. I had seen it all, and my instincts screamed that Emily's happiness was being used as a mask for something far darker. As the vows were exchanged, I tried to smile, to stay composed, to appear like any other proud father. But inside, a storm brewed. I knew this was only the beginning. The wedding, the celebrations, the joy, all of it was a curtain hiding the man's real intentions. And I feared that soon, very soon, Emily would see the truth too late. After the ceremony, as photos were taken and guests congratulated the couple, I found a quiet corner. I needed to think, to plan, to prepare. My daughter's life and our family legacy depended on it. I could not allow greed to triumph over love and trust. Not now, not ever. Emily approached me, radiant and smiling, oblivious to my fears. "Dad, aren't you happy?" she asked. Her voice was full of hope, full of trust. And I nodded, swallowing my anxiety. "Of course, my dear," I said, forcing a smile. But inside I was calculating every possible move, every threat, every potential betrayal that could unfold in the days ahead. As the night fell and the celebrations continued, I realized one thing clearly. This wedding was more than a union of two hearts. It was the starting point of a challenge, a test of everything I had built. And I would not let anyone, no matter how charming or confident, destroy what my family had earned. Because Emily was my only daughter, and I had spent my entire life ensuring her safety. The night after Emily's wedding was quieter than I expected. The laughter and music had faded, but the tension in my mind refused to rest. I sat alone in my study, the dim light of the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. My thoughts kept returning to him, her new husband. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something carefully concealed beneath his charm. Weeks had passed since the wedding, yet I observed every interaction, every phone call, every small glance. He was always polite, always attentive, but always calculating. There were subtle hints that betrayed his intentions, inquiries about investments, casual mentions of property, and comments that seemed innocent to anyone else but screamed warning to me. Emily, still glowing from her wedding, believed in the goodness of people. I envied her trust, yet feared for her naivety. She had no idea that her happiness had become a stage for a hidden game. My mind raced through memories of my own life, decades of building wealth, protecting what I had earned, and now, suddenly, it seemed as fragile as glass. Late one evening, I overheard a conversation. He was speaking to someone on the phone, and though he tried to lower his voice, the words were clear enough to freeze my blood. Everything is in place. Soon, the property and the assets will be mine. No one will interfere, especially the old man. He trusts me too much. I clenched my fists, the lamp shaking slightly from my grip. The betrayal was tangible now. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a plan, meticulously crafted and executed. My daughter's life, our family's legacy, everything I had worked for, it was under threat. I realized I had to act, but carefully. Any rash move could alert him, and then it would be too late. I began documenting everything: conversations, transactions, small inconsistencies. Every smile he offered, every polite nod, every handshake. I analyzed. There was a pattern, and patterns always have cracks. The next day, Emily approached me, still naive, still trusting. "Dad, he's so kind, isn't he? Everything feels so perfect." Her words should have comforted me, but instead, they fueled my resolve. I needed to protect her, not just from his schemes, but from the heartbreak that would follow if he succeeded. I decided it was time to test him. I presented small opportunities, trivial discussions about property and finances, and watched closely. He navigated every trap smoothly, never revealing his impatience, never slipping. But I noticed tiny signals: fingers tapping, eyes flicking, a brief hesitation that hinted at his true motives. Days turned into weeks. I had to balance appearing supportive while preparing for a confrontation that would safeguard Emily's future. My daughter, innocent and loving, deserved a world free from manipulation. I could no longer rely solely on instincts. I needed evidence, strategy, and allies who understood the depth of his ambitions. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived, a subtle warning from someone who knew him in the past. The words were brief but chilling. "He is not who he pretends to be. Trust nothing that comes with a smile. Act before it's too late." I read it twice, then burned it. The message was clear. The threat was real, immediate, and dangerous. I began preparing for confrontation, every plan meticulous, every move calculated. I realized that protecting Emily required not just courage, but patience. This was more than a familial issue. It was a battle of wits, of logic, of foresight against greed and deceit. In the evenings, as Emily laughed and shared dreams of a future with her husband, I silently studied every detail of his behavior. Every expression, every conversation, every tiny gesture held significance. I mapped out scenarios, anticipating moves before they happened, and ensuring I was always one step ahead. It was a test of endurance, intellect, and emotion. And I was determined to win, not for revenge, but to protect what was mine by right, to safeguard my daughter, to uphold justice. The challenge was immense, the stakes enormous, but failure was not an option. By the end of the month, I had gathered enough evidence. Every suspicious transaction, every hidden plan, every manipulation attempt was documented. I now had the power to confront him, to expose his intentions, and to protect Emily from the deception she could not yet see. And when the confrontation finally came, I knew it would be decisive. Every plan, every precaution, every careful observation would culminate in that moment. Emily's happiness, our family legacy, everything I valued was on the line. Because betrayal may hide behind a charming smile, but it leaves traces. And I had seen them all. I had waited for the right moment. Weeks of observation, analysis, and silent preparation had led me to this point. The day had come to confront him, not with anger, not with threats, but with undeniable truth. Emily was unaware, still living in her bubble of newlywed happiness, while her husband's intentions had become dangerously clear. It was late afternoon when I called him to my study. The room smelled of old wood and leather-bound books, the familiar scent grounding me as I prepared to reveal everything. He entered, smiling as always, pretending to be the perfect son-in-law. But I had seen through the mask, and now it was time to test his resolve. "Have a seat," I said calmly, gesturing to the chair opposite mine. My voice betrayed none of the storm inside me. He sat, folding his hands neatly, eyes scanning the room as if noting details, but unaware that I had noted every detail of him long before. "I trust you understand the responsibilities that come with marrying my daughter," I began, keeping my tone neutral. "Family, property, legacy, everything we hold dear." He nodded politely. "Of course, sir. I assure you I will do my best to honor your trust." I leaned forward slightly, locking my gaze onto his. "Do you? Or is that just a convenient lie?" His polite expression faltered for the briefest second, just enough for me to see. Then he composed himself. "I don't understand, sir. What are you implying?" I slid a folder across the table. He glanced at it, then at me, and the first crack appeared in his mask. Inside were documents, transactions, and even recordings of his secret conversations. Each page was a piece of the puzzle I had meticulously gathered. "I've observed you carefully," I said, keeping my voice calm, controlled. "Every transaction, every casual remark, every attempt to manipulate our family's assets. You thought it would go unnoticed. You thought I was blind." He swallowed, but his composure remained. "This is preposterous. You have no proof, just assumptions." I smiled slightly. "Proof? Right here, right now. And each piece tells the story you hope to hide." I opened the folder, letting the evidence speak louder than any accusation could. Bank transfers, hidden agreements, subtle manipulations, all exposed. The room grew tense. He realized he had been cornered. I can explain." "Explain?" I interrupted, voice rising just enough to command attention. "Explain betrayal, deception, and greed? You married my daughter under a pretense, hoping to secure what is not yours by right. You underestimated me, and that is your mistake." He finally faltered, beads of sweat forming at his temple. "It's not what you think. I did what was necessary." "Necessary?" I leaned closer, voice low, cutting like a knife. "Necessary to steal, to manipulate, to ruin what I built with decades of hard work? My daughter's happiness is not currency for your gain." Emily's soft footsteps sounded outside. I realized she had overheard part of the confrontation. My heart sank for a moment, fear for her innocence, but I knew truth was stronger than comfort. She entered quietly, her eyes wide, scanning the room. "Dad? What's happening?" she asked, voice trembling. I gestured for her to stay back, not wanting to overwhelm her. "Emily, listen carefully. This man, your husband, has intentions you could never have imagined. He sought our family's assets, not your love. Everything he presented as kindness, everything he claimed as care, was a lie." Her face paled, confusion and hurt battling in her eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Save your lies. The evidence speaks louder than your words." I laid out each document, each proof of deception. Emily's hands trembled as she held the pages, realizing the betrayal hidden behind the mask she once trusted. Her husband's confidence shattered with each revelation, the pretense of innocence dissolving into guilt and desperation. I never meant to hurt her, he stammered. Intentions don't matter when the truth is this clear, I replied firmly. You gambled with my daughter's happiness and our family's trust. And now, you will face the consequences. He tried to argue, to bargain, but I had anticipated every word, every potential excuse, every manipulative plea, prepared and countered. Justice was not about revenge. It was about protecting Emily, protecting what was rightfully hers, and preventing further deception. The confrontation lasted hours, tense and emotionally charged. Emily stayed beside me, absorbing the truth, understanding the depth of the betrayal. By the end, he was left with no room to maneuver, cornered, exposed, and powerless. I finally stood, addressing both of them. Emily, this is your life, your happiness. Remember that love should be free of manipulation, free of greed. Your path forward is yours to choose, but now you know the truth. Her eyes met mine, filled with gratitude and relief. Thank you, Dad, she whispered, tears streaming. I never realized. I didn't see it coming. I smiled faintly, placing a hand on her shoulder. That is why I watched, Emily. That is why I acted. Because the heart can trust, but the mind must see the truth. The man, her husband, stood silently, defeated. He had attempted to take what was not his, but he failed. And I knew this confrontation was not just about evidence, it was about teaching, about clarity, and about safeguarding the legacy of those we love. As night fell, we sat together, Emily and I, reflecting on what had transpired. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. Trust must be earned, intentions must be transparent, and deception, no matter how clever, cannot withstand scrutiny. This confrontation was over, but the scars, the awareness, and the understanding it brought would stay with us forever. And from that day forward, I vowed to always watch over her, not to control, but to guide, to protect, and to ensure that no mask of greed ever threatened her happiness again. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of our home, casting warm, golden light across the room. It felt symbolic. After the darkness of deception and betrayal, clarity and truth had finally emerged. Emily was quiet, thoughtful, and changed. The shock of revelation had left her reflective, stronger than before, understanding that life sometimes demanded more than innocence. It demanded vigilance, discernment, and courage. I watched her from across the room, my daughter, my only child, who had once been unaware of the dangers lurking behind a charming smile, now carried a sense of wisdom and caution. It was a strange mix of pride and sorrow that I felt, knowing that such lessons had to be learned the hard way, but grateful that we had survived it together. I understand now, Dad, Emily said softly, breaking the silence. I never realized how careful one must be, how some people can hide their intentions behind words and charm. Yes, I replied, my voice calm but firm. Life will always test you, Emily. Some tests are subtle, like words and gestures. Others are loud and unavoidable. But the principle remains the same. Always trust, but verify. Always protect your heart, but keep your mind alert. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I will remember, Dad. I promise. And I will not let anyone manipulate me again, not for money, not for power, not for anything. I smiled faintly, feeling the weight of years and experience condensed into this moment. Good. That is the strength I hoped to instill in you. Remember, true justice doesn't always come in grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it comes quietly, with preparation, observation, and the courage to face truth. Emily nodded, absorbing every word. She now understood that love, while important, could not blind her to reality. Trust could be given, but wisdom must guide it. I looked back at the man, the husband, who had tried to deceive, manipulate, and exploit. He had left our home hours ago, humbled and defeated, knowing that his plans had failed. There was no vengeance in my heart, only a firm lesson. Deceit could not prevail against truth and vigilance. Later, we gathered with close family, friends, and a few trusted advisors. We discussed the steps to safeguard our property, finances, and family legacy. Emily's husband was formally confronted, boundaries were legally established, and the remnants of manipulation were neutralized. The process was tedious but necessary. It reinforced a truth I had always believed in. Protection comes not only from love, but from clarity, foresight, and decisive action. That evening, as Emily and I walked through the garden, she asked, "Dad, do you think life will always test me like this?" I paused, looking at her thoughtful face, illuminated by the fading sunlight. Life will test everyone, Emily, but the measure of a person is not whether tests come, but how they respond. Today, you responded with courage, reflection, and a willingness to learn. That is the mark of strength. She smiled faintly, the first real smile since the confrontation. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for watching over me, for guiding me, and for never letting me face deception alone. I nodded, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey had been difficult, emotional, and testing, but it had strengthened both of us. Emily now carried not only the lessons of life, but also a resilience that would serve her in years to come. Before the day ended, I decided to record a short message for those who might one day hear our story. Not to boast, but to teach. Life will challenge you, sometimes in ways you cannot imagine. People may hide their intentions, and trust can be broken, but clarity, observation, and courage will guide you. Protect your heart, educate your mind, and remember that true justice is not revenge. It is preparation, awareness, and the strength to act wisely. Share your life with those you trust, but always see the truth clearly. And never forget, vigilance is love in action. Emily listened, nodding, and I knew that she understood not just the words, but the essence behind them. Finally, as the night fell, I addressed our small audience, friends, family, and anyone who might one day hear our tale. Like, subscribe, and remember, life is full of tests, but truth, courage, and vigilance are timeless tools. Use them wisely, and you will safeguard not only your happiness, but also your legacy. Never take trust lightly, and always let wisdom lead your heart. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to a day of revelation, understanding, and resolution. For Emily, the future was bright, guided by lessons learned through experience, strengthened by love, and protected by awareness. For me, the satisfaction of safeguarding her happiness, legacy, and peace of mind was immeasurable. This was more than a story of deception and confrontation. It was a lesson for all who value love, trust, and justice. The journey had ended, but the moral would last a lifetime. Vigilance is love, and truth is the ultimate protector.